I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and welcome to Equal Entertainment, a new twist for the Smith family. Jada Pinkett Smith says she and Will Smith have been separated for 7 years, and there are new details about that Oscars slap. Pinkett Smith has a new memoir coming out. Jada says she and Will have been living completely separate lives since 2016. They were not ready to go public until now. Pinkett Smith says Chris Rock asked her out on a date amid a period of divorce rumors, and she says it was years before the slap at the Oscars in 2022. In a clip from an NBC News primetime special, Pinkett Smith didn't say exactly what caused the split, but she says she promised that there would never be a reason for divorce. The superstar couple has been married since 1997. Singer Joe Jonas and actor Sophie Turner now have an interim custody agreement for their 2 daughters. The couple says the children will now split their time between the U.S. and the U.K. Jonas filed for divorce from Turner in September. The Game of Thrones star then sued Jonas, accusing him of wrongfully keeping their children in New York City. Rock band U2 is paying tribute to people massacred at a music festival in Israel by Hamas militants. The Nova Music Festival was held in a rural farmland near the Gaza-Israel border. The all-night dance party was in celebration of Jewish holidays. U2 is dedicating the song Pride in the Name of Love to the Nova Festival victims. Singer Bono pointed out the irony of singing a song about nonviolence at a time of war. Hamas militants attacked the Nova Music Festival just after sunrise. So far, at least 260 bodies have been found. Some survivors were captured by militant group Hamas and are being held hostage. The murder of Matthew Shepard echoes through the queer community 25 years later. His death helped spark a national movement. People who were in Wyoming at the time of his death are reflecting on his legacy. The National LGBTQ Task Force's Cathy Renna, who was on the ground days after his attack in Laramie, Wyoming, says that Matthew is still inspiring her work.
We are marking an important anniversary this year, and there's a film coming out, a project, Matthew Shepard, an American crime story that's coming out. And I wonder, first, would you talk a little bit about your connection to Matthew and that story?
Sure. I continue to say it's one of the most significant things I've been involved in my career of about 30 years, and this happened 25 years ago. So it was very early in my years as an activist. I was in Washington, D.C., and I was working for GLAAD at the time, then the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, now the LGBTQ Media Advocacy Organization. And we started to hear from folks all over the country and see media coverage about a young man who had been found beaten and left to die in a town called Laramie, Wyoming, which I had never heard of, on October 6, 1998. I remember I was literally like in the office, and we had this, it was the internet was still fairly new, email was still fairly new, and, we were getting inundated. And then later that day, I was in my apartment and I got a call from Jim Osborne, who was the president of the Gay and Lesbian Student Group at the time at the University of Wyoming. And I asked him what I could do to be helpful, and he said, you can get on a effing plane. I don't know if I can curse or not. And I did the next morning. And so, that really began a journey of these last 25 years with local activists, his family, the Laramie Project, Considering Matthew Shepard, Leslie and Newman, and all the amazing, beautiful work that she's done writing about Matt, that culminated in him being interred at the National Cathedral. I mean, I talk about hate crimes a lot, and the reason that I can talk about hate crimes a lot is because of the attention that was paid to Matt. And one of the reasons that we talk about these things a lot is why Matt's murder got so much attention, which is, of course, always an issue of interest to whether it's media or whether it's folks within the community who are truly trying to understand that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Cathy, would you describe what it was like for you to be in that moment in Laramie and speaking with, Dennis and Judy Shepard, and I would imagine Romaine Patterson, who was his close friend. What was that like?
Well, the first time I went, we had no contact with Judy and Dennis. They were at the hospital. He hung on for about 6 days. Romaine, of course, I met subsequently. In fact, she worked with me at GLAAD. I brought her to Washington, D.C., and it all went from there for her. She was a really extraordinary voice at the time. I remember standing in front of the courthouse during the first, what turned out to be a plea bargain, not a trial, but when the angels came around the corner. And there's nothing more priceless than Fred Phelps's face at that moment. It was really fantastic. I mean, the media were also stunned to silence. We were all in tears, but it was a very powerful, just such a powerful message of love and grace that, this is someone who'd been insulting us and picketing the funerals of people with HIV, and these young people put together a response that has completely shifted in many ways, not just the way we respond to hateful people like Fred Phelps, but in many ways, a lot of the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that we face. And so, these are, again, there are 1,000 moments like that I could share, being at the first performance of the Laramie Project. And then I've been at hundreds of them since, and now talking to actors and students and people in the audience who weren't even born yet when this happened, and having that really interesting experience of trying to explain how things have changed and things are still very difficult and there's a lot more to do.
Would you talk about how that influenced hate crime legislation at the time?
Sure. I mean, it was very interesting in that I remember vividly having very specific conversations with media and within the community, because I think everyone says to me, why did his murder get so much attention? In fact, his mom, the day I met her in person, that was like one of the first things she asked me, because she said, as I'm learning more about this happens all the time. Why is my son, and this incident getting so much attention? And I said, well, he was young, he was white, he was a college student, he was a middle class, upper middle class, and, he was gay, but he wasn't too gay. Like, he fit the sort of boy next door narrative that we have in this country. And the other piece of that is not just the media, and I say this all the time, and it's a little painful to do it, but a lot of this is because our community rose up. We had thousands of people in the streets. We had dozens, if not hundreds, of vigils, and you just didn't see the same thing prior or since, frankly, depending on what that person looked like. I've worked on dozens, who knows, more hate crimes in my, pretty long career here. And, we have to fight and fight to get visibility for trans people, for people of color. It's much, much more difficult than it was with Matt. And I think that plays into all of these intersections of race and class, et cetera.
Yeah, well, Cathy, I want to thank you for all this information, and I want to leave, if there is a way to leave on a note of hope, what direction would you take us?
Well, we're looking at 25 years since we lost Matt. It's also 20 years since we lost Sakia Gunn. And in some ways, that's a murder that struck me personally in my heart a lot more. She was a young, butch lesbian from Newark, New Jersey, African-American. And I went there too. Same way I went to Laramie, I went to Newark. And this month, we're going to be doing a street naming. And I think, we have to look at the fact that Matt opened the door for so many other stories. And so in some ways, we really have to look at it in a positive light in that way. As Matt's father said at the second trial, good is coming out of evil. And to me, that I still get goosebumps because I was sitting there when he said it. And when I say it again, I hear his voice in my head. And I think that's the position they've taken. And that's why they've done the work they've done for 25 years, which is extraordinary given what happened in their lives. As a parent, I couldn't imagine. And so I think to me, that's the way I look at it every day, is that, we hear more and more about, hate crimes that are happening in the current climate, and that we have to hold on to the hope that doing this work and the visibility around it is going to open people's eyes and get them engaged in doing the work to turn that around.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Cathy Renna, Director of Communications for the National LGBTQ Task Force, thank you for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can watch the Advocate Channel live by downloading our app in the Apple or Google Play stores. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate Channel, I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and thank you for watching.